Hello, buddy. Welcome back to Tin Man's Court Channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'm starting off my new marathon of Midnight Tales reactions for you. And the first video I'm reacting to is 6 Most Disturbing True Taxi Horror Stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road and back, shall we? Okay, here we go.
A few years back, I was living in central London, Zone 1, which meant pretty much everything was within walking distance, and usually felt safe,
Right.
even late at night. I was around 20 at the time, and I'd gone out for a night of club hopping with my friend Jess. Now, Jess was infamous for overdoing it whenever alcohol was involved, and that night was no different. Despite my best efforts to get her to pace herself with water between drinks, she was going full throttle on tequila shots.
Even though you might be in a district of London or any other town in the world, and you think it's safe, sometimes it ain't. You may have some creeps that are just wandering around in specific areas, and they might be able to sneak up right behind you and grab you. And the fact that her friend is drinking down tequila like it was out of style really bothers me, because she'll be too drunk to even defend herself if they run into a bad situation. But anyway, let's continue on with this story and see what happens next, shall we?
Things were fine at first. We were dancing, laughing, having a solid time, until I found her being a total menace to one of the bathroom attendants. I won't get into all the messy details, but let's just say I had to physically drag her out before she got herself banned from the place. Still, it was too late. One of the bouncers saw the chaos and told Jess it was time to call it a night. I agreed. This wasn't my first time dealing with one of her midnight meltdowns. I was hoping to get her to sober up a bit outside so we could walk home.
Which ain't always the case, because sometimes people like her just wants to hit the drink so hard that they don't want to leave a specific place, and they become bossy and think that they own the place. But yeah, if the bouncer says it's time for you to go, you got to go before they call the cops on you. Or else you'll be charged with a drunk misdemeanor and starting chaos, you know. So if your friend tells you it's time to go, just go and don't make it a big scene.
It wasn't that far, but she wasn't having it. That same bouncer actually came out and offered to call us a licensed cab so we could get home safely, which I really appreciated because I didn't have any reliable taxi numbers memorized. She even said she'd bring Jess some clean cold water while we waited, which was better than the lukewarm bottle I had in my bag. The taxi arrived not long after. Older guy, probably mid-50s, looked like someone's uncle. Short, balding, a little round in the middle, and Southeast Asian. He seemed harmless enough. I even noticed a picture on the dashboard that looked like it was of his kids, and he had a wedding ring on, which added to the sense of normal. He dropped us off outside my apartment, and while Jess sat slumped on a bench, I lit a cigarette and leaned against the door to take a breather before heading inside. But the guy didn't drive off. He just sat there, engine idling, which I figured wasn't too weird. Maybe he was waiting for his next job. But after I finished my smoke, I realized I couldn't get the door open. My building had this old jammed front door that took forever to open. Like sometimes you'd have to mess with it for 15 or 20 minutes before it gave in. I kept fiddling with it, getting more frustrated. And that's when I noticed the driver had gotten out of his car and was walking toward us. He said he wanted to help, and while part of me appreciated the offer, another part of me was starting to get a little uneasy.
Yeah, I'll be getting uneasy feelings too, because, like she said, why would he be waiting there in front of their apartment instead of just driving off after he dropped them off? That tells you he was just waiting for her to finish up with her smoking, and if they can't get inside the apartment, he was going to probably kidnap them or help them in and then probably do some nasty stuff with them in their apartment. Who knows? But hopefully she get the door open and get her friend inside before that taxi driver has a chance to grab him.
I thanked him, but told him we were just going to head to a friend's nearby instead. Not true. Everyone I knew was asleep, but I was trying to give him a polite excuse to leave. He insisted on giving us a lift, and Jess, now magically full of energy again, jumped right in the car like it was no big deal. She didn't see the red flags flying all around. So now I'm in the back seat again with her, against my better judgment. And he's asking us all kinds of creepy personal questions. Stuff like whether we lived alone, if we had boyfriends, if anyone was expecting us. I sobered up real fast, the moment he mentioned driving us to King's Cross, which made no sense that late since the trains were barely running. I knew I had to get us out of that car. I told him I needed to call someone before we left and asked him to pull over for a quick cigarette. He stopped, and I basically yanked Jess out with me, told the guy we'd be fine from there, and politely asked him to move along. He nodded and drove off around the corner. I felt a little guilty for being suspicious. Maybe he was just being overly helpful. But something about it didn't sit right. We tried the front door again, and of course it still wouldn't open. I was getting more anxious now, probably fumbling the keys more from nerves than anything else. Jess tried too, but she was in no shape to help. And then, because of course this night wasn't over, the guy came back around the corner, said he was just checking on us. At first it could have passed as concern, a middle-aged guy making sure two girls weren't stranded on the street. But then it got weird. He walked right up to me, took the keys out of my hand like I was a child, and started trying to open the door himself. I finally snatched them back and managed to get it open, and as I stepped inside, he followed way too close behind me. Jess, still half oblivious, thanked him with a hug and disappeared into the hallway. I tried to offer a quick, "Thanks, have a good night," but that wasn't enough for him. Before I could even step all the way in, he grabbed me by the arms, leaned in, and full-on tried to kiss me, like aggressively. His face was rough, his breath smelled like cheap aftershave, and his tongue, he was trying to force it in my mouth. I jerked away, completely grossed out, but he didn't stop. Instead, he licked my face, like actually licked it.
Okay, dude, what the actual crap was he thinking? That tells you right there he's one crazy old guy that seems like don't like his wife anymore. And he wants to go after these young chicks. But golly, no, if I was standing at the door, I'd be like, get out now before I call the cops. But man, if she had pepper spray on her, I would tell her to pull it out and spray the crap out of that dude for even trying to smooch on her. Oh, yuck, that is disgusting.
I think my brain short-circuited for a second, but I managed to headbutt him and knee him right between the legs. He let go immediately, shocked, and I slammed the door shut behind me and bolted upstairs with Jess trailing behind, still clueless. I locked the front door, and then my bedroom door, just in case, and watched from the window as he drove around the street a few more times, like he was waiting for me to come back out for a smoke or something. I didn't sleep much that night. I was disgusted, angry, and scared. I kept replaying the whole thing, wondering if I should have called the police, or at least let the club know about the guy. I'll never know what he was really planning, but I'm thankful I got away when I did. And yeah, I don't care how friendly a cab driver might seem now. I'm not taking any chances.
And I wouldn't blame you. But man, I still would have called the police or let the club owners know about this taxi driver. Because they will know now not to trust this guy picking up people. Especially women. Because he seems like the guy that he'll act all nice and sweet and try to seduce ladies. But man, I wish he memorized the cab number and what company it belongs to and called them up and say, hey, your driver forced himself into our apartment and started licking my face and try to tongue kisser. I mean, that would be enough grounds to just fire that guy and have him arrested. But thankfully, she was able to kick that guy between the legs and hit him in the head just to knock him out and push him outside. I'm mad at her friend for just jumping in that guy's cab again without knowing what he's up to. I mean, I'll be going out over her being like, if you weren't so drunk, we would have been in the dangerous man's cab. Man, that is creepy. I'm just glad they don't have to deal with him no more, hopefully. Let's get on to story number 2, shall we?
This happened back in April 2018. I was just about to take my lunch break at work when one of my good friends hit me up and told me I should swing by her place for her dad's birthday.
Okay.
At first I was like, girl, your place is far, and traffic's a nightmare right now. But then she casually mentioned there'd be carbonara, my absolute favorite. And I swear, I was already halfway to the taxi stand before she even finished the sentence. You know how food can make you reconsider every logical decision you were about to make? Yeah, that was me. I hopped in the first taxi I saw outside the office, and the driver seemed normal enough, friendly, kind of chatty, smiling through the rearview mirror, just asking the usual stuff like what I thought about the traffic and how hot it was that day. Pretty standard small talk, nothing weird yet. He started telling me about how he used to work overseas, saved up, came home, and bought a car so he could start driving a taxi. He mentioned he was single and lived not far from where I worked. At that point, I didn't really think too much of it. He asked where I was headed, and I just told him I was going to a friend's place for her dad's birthday. I mean, people share stuff with drivers all the time, right?
Yeah, sometimes they do, but if they give off stalker vibes, I wouldn't be telling them all that information. And I mean, that was already flagged when this person said that taxi driver said that he was single. I mean, if he has a pretty woman jump into his taxi cab, he ain't going to resist trying to do small talk just to get to getting your phone number and stuff, you know. Oh boy, this is already sounding creepy.
It felt harmless. But then came the, do you have a boyfriend question. I kind of brushed it off and told him no, and that's when the vibe started to shift. He suddenly got more interested, kept checking me out through the mirror, complimenting me, saying I was pretty and petite.
Oh my god, you should have just lied and said, yeah, you had a boyfriend. Because then he would have been not getting all flirty on you anymore. I mean, I've been trying to change the conversation to something else, just so we get to the destination quick.
That uneasy little feeling in my gut? Yeah, it kicked in fast. Traffic wasn't letting up, and then he just casually suggested that I ditch the birthday plans and go have lunch with him instead. He'd even treat me. He also brought up visiting me at my house and said he could start picking me up from work like we were suddenly in some weird relationship. I'd only been in the car for maybe 15 minutes at this point, and was already thinking of ways to bail. Then came the part where he asked for my number. I tried to brush it off, but he just kept pushing. He even started taking weird turns, and it felt like he was dragging the trip out on purpose. I was so on edge that I started texting my friends, telling them where I was and how uncomfortable I felt. At one point, he even stopped the car and asked someone for directions, and I seriously considered jumping out and running. But for some reason, I froze and stayed. He got back in the car with this creepy smile and said he knew where my friend's house was now, but wouldn't take me unless I gave him my number. That's when I really realized I'd screwed up. I tried to look for the plate number on the windows to send to my friends, and he saw what I was doing. He said, "Don't bother. I just bought this car. It's not even registered in my name yet." At that point, I was pretty much terrified. I ended up giving him my number, thinking if I gave him a fake one and he called it right there, I'd be screwed. He didn't even call it, just nodded, and finally started driving again. When I recognized my friend's street, I felt such a huge wave of relief. He said he'd wait and drive me back to work or take me out later, but I shut that down real quick. I called my friend and told her to meet me outside right away. And the second I saw her at the gate, I jumped out of that car, paid, and bolted inside. I watched through the window and saw the taxi just sitting there for a while before it finally drove off. My friend was pissed at me for not running when I had the chance, but also super worried. Her dad wasn't happy either. To cheer me up, they basically let me go to town on the Carbonara. I stayed for a couple of hours just to make sure that Creep wasn't still nearby. When it was finally time to head back to work, I didn't take any chances. I booked a taxi through an app that had driver info and GPS tracking. No surprise visits, no friendly chats. He did try calling and texting for weeks after that, but I blocked him and never saw him near my workplace again. Honestly, I hope I never do. That whole thing definitely made me rethink how safe it really is to ride alone, even in broad daylight. But over time, I've been able to move past it and get back to feeling like myself again.
Oh, thank God. Because if he still was out there waiting for her just to take her back to work, I'd be calling the cops to get this guy arrested. And I cannot believe he even said, don't bother looking up his plate number because it's not even registered in the guy's name yet. Oh, okay, that'd be alarming. Because then if you got kidnapped by this freak, then cops will have a harder time trying to locate him. But man, I still would have gave him a fake number just to see if he would call it or took the bait. Thank God she blocked that number, but I still would have taken that to the police to see if they could do anything to tell them to stop harassing her, or she's going to get them to arrest him. But yes, always trust your instincts if they start talking weird to you, like asking questions about your personal life, because no stranger don't need to know that at all.
So this happened about 3 years ago. During a summer holiday, I went on with my boyfriend and his family. The whole trip had been pretty amazing. Sunny beach days, ocean swims, city exploring, all the good stuff. But there's one particular night that stuck with me, and not in a good way. Throughout the trip, we spent a lot of time with his stepsister. She's a little younger than us, and honestly, she was kind of clingy and a bit too into drinking, but we still let her tag along most of the time. One night she came up with the brilliant idea to try and find a club, even though only my boyfriend was actually old enough to get in. Despite pointing this out, we all started this drunken adventure to the other side of the island like it was totally normal. I was wobbling everywhere, falling over more than I'd like to admit, but we were all laughing and too drunk to care. By the time we actually got to the club, it was dead. Apparently it was already 2 a.m. and everyone was leaving, which was a letdown. So instead, we wandered into the McDonald's nearby to grab food. I ordered something and told my boyfriend and his stepsister that I needed some air, so I stepped outside to have a cigarette. While I was standing there, this black car pulled up in the taxi spot. My legs were killing me from all the walking and falling, and I was way too drunk to consider walking back, so I asked the driver how much it had cost to take us to our hotel. He told me 10 euros, but I only had 5. I pleaded a little, saying we were tourists and didn't know the area well, and surprisingly, he agreed to take us for 5. My boyfriend and his stepsister came out of McDonald's right as I was talking to the guy, and I told them he offered to drive us. The man looked surprised when he saw I wasn't alone, but told us to hop in. As we were about to get in, he asked if I could sit in the front. I didn't think much of it at the time, even though my boyfriend wasn't too happy about it. But I was drunk and just went along with it.
Oh, crud. That taxi driver just probably lowered the price down just so he could take you, but when he saw your boyfriend and his stepsister come out, he made them sit in the back and you sit in the front. But I know if the boyfriend sees that he tries to move his arm anywhere near her legs or any other body part of hers, I know he's going to jump up and tell that guy to stop. And it ain't going to be a pretty sight, that's for sure.
At first, it was fine. We were all joking around, music was playing, and the ride was actually kind of fun. He was chatty, asking questions about where we were from and stuff like that. But then, Slowly, he started to act weird. He took my hand while driving, which I brushed off as him just being overly friendly. But then he started doing it more often, and I was starting to feel a bit weird about it. Then it got worse. He suddenly grabbed my hand and placed it on his thigh, holding it there even when I tried to move it. I shifted away in my seat, and he finally let go. I looked at my boyfriend's stepsister in the back, and she mouthed, "Are you okay?" I nodded, mostly because I didn't know what else to do. She whispered something to my boyfriend, and they both went quiet. A few minutes later, as we were getting close to the hotel, he grabbed my hand again, this time placing it on my own thigh, and held it there tight. I was wearing a short dress, and the moment his hand started creeping higher, I froze. I clamped my legs together and just stared out the window, praying we'd get to the hotel soon. My boyfriend noticed something was off and told the guy to knock it off. The driver just laughed it off, calling himself friendly, but didn't stop. Things escalated quickly. Even with my boyfriend and his sister yelling at him to pull over, he kept driving, insisting we were almost there. He didn't stop. And then, he used his hand to touch me somewhere no one ever has the right to touch. I was too scared and too frozen to move. When we finally stopped in front of the hotel, I jumped out without saying a word and looked at my boyfriend. I told him flat out. He touched me. My boyfriend lost it. He ran over to the driver's window, shouting, ready to fight, but the guy sped off so fast we couldn't even react. My boyfriend managed to kick the back of the car and left a dent in the license plate. We went inside, and I just poured myself more drinks trying to numb the whole experience. The next morning we had a boat trip planned with his family, and a few of them asked me if I was okay, since they'd heard something had happened. I just said I was fine, even though inside I was still shaking. I thought it was behind me, until we walked out into the hotel driveway, and I saw the taxi stand. Every car parked there was white, all with yellow taxi signs on the roof. That's when it hit me. The man the night before wasn't even a real taxi driver. That creep saw a drunk 17-year-old girl alone, assumed I was an easy target, and pretended to be a cabbie just to lure me into his car.
Yep, I knew it. I know now she feels like an idiot, but if you don't see any taxi labels or a sign on the top of the roof of the car, then that would an automatic red flag not to trust that guy, because it just seems like he was just waiting to pick up some young girls just to mess with. Let's just put it that way. Ugh. There's a bunch of weird creeps in this world, I tell you, that take advantage of young girls like that. I mean, I'll be telling somebody to write down the number of that license plate and so they could get the authorities to go find him and arrest him for posing as a taxi driver and trying to touch a 17-year-old girl inappropriately. I mean, they could put him away for life for that, that's for sure. But I'm just glad they got back to the hotel and they got out of that creep's car before he decided to pull another stunt on them. But now she's more wise if they go back to that area for fun to not look for that type of car anymore. Go for the officially licensed taxi drivers instead.
This happened when I was 19 and living in London. I'd spent the evening at my boyfriend's place, and since his car was in the shop, he booked me a cab to get home. It was about a 30-minute drive. Just before I got in, he kissed me and said, loud enough for the driver to hear, "Text me when you get home, okay?" At the time, I thought that was just him being sweet. But looking back, it was kind of a blessing. As soon as I got in, the driver seemed friendly enough. He asked me a bit about school and what I was studying, and it all felt like normal small talk at first. But pretty quickly, the conversation took a weird turn. He started telling me about how he was from Pakistan and that he was Muslim, then asked if I was too. Now, my family's Iranian and Muslim by background, but I don't really practice. Still, I just nodded and said yes. I didn't feel like explaining or starting anything awkward. That answer seemed to light something in him, because suddenly he was going on about how I seemed like a good Muslim girl, and how he'd love to marry someone just like me. At that point, I was getting real uncomfortable, and I noticed he turned down a street that added a good 15 minutes to the drive.
Oh, geez. She got into a taxi with a creepy guy. I mean, the taxi driver saw that she's with somebody. I don't know why he wants to take the chance and try to seduce her. But man, I'd be telling that girl to, if I was with her, to text the boyfriend and tell him what's going on and get the cops to find that guy and pull him over. But man, this ain't good at all.
I knew the usual route, and this definitely wasn't it. I quickly texted my boyfriend saying, "This cab driver is acting super weird," and he told me to keep texting him until I got home. But that plan kind of flopped, because a few minutes later he stopped replying. Either he passed out, or just wasn't paying attention anymore. Meanwhile, the driver asks me if the guy who kissed me goodbye was my boyfriend. I didn't hesitate, just said yes, and tried to make it sound as serious as possible, hoping it'd make him back off. But nope. Instead, he kept saying creepy stuff like how he wanted a girl exactly like me. Then, with no warning, he hit the lock button, and all the car doors clicked shut. I asked why he locked the doors, and he smiled and said, "Just for safety." My heart sank. I was trying to stay calm, but inside I was panicking. The streets were quiet and dark, and I was basically trapped in the car with this man who clearly wasn't just making conversation. He started asking these invasive, disgusting questions, like whether I was a virgin or had done anything with a guy. I just sat there frozen, ignoring him, texting my boyfriend again and again, hoping he'd finally respond. Nothing. When we finally pulled up to my place, I just wanted to get out of that car, but he made it worse by overcharging me, and then saying he had my number from the booking and was going to call me so we could hang out. I told him I was in a relationship and that my family would never go for it. He smirked and said, "Well, it can be our little secret." I reached for the door handle, but it was still locked. He just laughed like it was a game, and then stared at me through the rearview mirror with this long, intense glare that felt like it went on forever. My entire body went cold. The street was dead silent, not a soul in sight. Finally, he unlocked the doors, and I bolted. I ran to my front door, fumbling with my keys, and just started knocking like mad until my mum opened the door. She took one look at me and asked why I looked like I'd seen a ghost. I told her everything. She was furious and called the cab company right away. Turns out, this wasn't even the first time he'd pulled something like that. They said they'd fire him immediately. We also reported it to the police, but since he didn't physically harm me, they said they couldn't really do anything. Still, it was one of the most terrifying cab rides I've ever had, and it really made me think twice about getting in a car alone with a stranger ever again.
Whoa, I'm just glad she got out of that cab and was able to get her mom to call the cab company and get that guy fired, because I don't get why a cab company would even hire a guy like that would just keep on doing all these sick, flirty talks with girls. I mean, if they get a report on him the first time, they should automatically suspend him or fire him then, not wait until he have several more reports. And the fact that they tried calling the police and they said they can't do nothing because he did not touch her, that's bull crap. Because he can memorize the number that was on file for the taxi booking app and keep calling her nonstop. Then that'll be something for the police to take seriously. But yeah, you always gotta watch what you say with these taxi drivers, because you never know if they'll end up taking you on a different route to kidnap you or try to get a lot of information out of you as quickly as possible. Then you have some sort of a creepy stalker following you everywhere you go. But luckily, she don't have to deal with him no more, and she knows now what to look for in a taxi driver.
This happened when I was around 10 years old. My family moved around a lot because my dad was in the military, and we were based in the Middle East for a few years. That meant we took a lot of weekend trips to nearby countries, since flights were cheap and everything was super close. One weekend, we decided to head to Cairo, Egypt, just a short flight away from where we lived. At the time, I didn't know Cairo had a reputation for kidnappings, which in hindsight makes what happened next feel even worse. We landed late, like really late, probably after midnight, and we were supposed to have a hotel shuttle waiting for us from the Marriott. But surprise, no one showed up. So we stood around forever trying to find a regular taxi that wasn't trying to scam us. And eventually this one guy offered us a flat rate that seemed fair. He seemed friendly enough and helped with our bags, so we got in and started making our way through the streets of Cairo. But not even 10 minutes into the ride, another taxi suddenly rammed into the side of our car, like full-on T-boned us out of nowhere. There wasn't really a defined road or lanes or anything, so maybe it wasn't all that shocking in Cairo traffic terms, but it scared the crap out of all of us. Both drivers jumped out of their cars and immediately started yelling at each other, just full-on screaming in Arabic. I remember thinking they were about to throw punches right there in the street. But after all the drama, they eventually got back into their cars like nothing even happened, and we just continued on our way to the hotel like that was a totally normal Tuesday night. By the time we finally arrived at the hotel, we were all exhausted. It had to be around 3 in the morning. The driver helped us unload and, trying to be nice, apologized for the whole crash situation. He even offered to take us to see the pyramids the next morning at a discount, since it was already on our schedule. My parents agreed, and they picked a time for him to come back. I don't remember what time exactly, but I remember thinking it was cool he was being so nice. So the next morning rolls around, and we're all packed and ready to go. The driver's already waiting for us outside the hotel, leaning against his car like he was posing for some old movie scene.
You know, that ain't a bad deal there. You get a low rate on the taxi cab service, but then gives you a discount to go see the pyramids after that little incident with another cab driver hitting them, which that's kind of odd. Unless one taxi driver hated that guy or something. I don't know what was the deal with that. But if he starts getting all friendly by this point, then something's up. They need to keep a close eye on him.
Now here's where things got weird. I was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid who had a pretty dark tan from living in the Middle East, so I stood out quite a bit in Egypt. When the driver saw me in the daylight, the look he gave me was just wrong. It wasn't friendly or curious. It was unsettling. My 10-year-old brain knew something was off right away. We got in the car anyway because, my parents were there and everything seemed fine on the surface. But the whole drive, the guy kept trying to talk to me directly, telling jokes, asking questions, being way too friendly for someone who should have been focusing on the road. It gave me the creeps. And the fact that he didn't seem to care that both my mom and dad were sitting right there made it worse. When we got close to the pyramids, there were 2 entrances, one for pedestrians and one for vehicles. You had to buy tickets to get in, which was kind of strange to me at the time. The driver kept joking about how he could sneak me in for free because of my pretty hair and eyes, and that my parents wouldn't even have to pay. My parents just laughed it off awkwardly, paid him the fare, and started walking toward the entrance. But before I could follow them, the driver suddenly got out of the car and motioned for me to come to the back. I thought maybe we forgot a bag or something, so I walked over to his trunk while my parents kept walking ahead.
No, don't do it. He's acting all friendly on you to gain your trust, but he's literally going to probably push you in the back of the trunk. I would just run to the parents and tell them what he was doing, because then they'll say, "Get out of here." But yeah, that's already sounding creepy.
He popped the trunk open, but there was nothing in it. I remember just standing there, confused. And then out of nowhere, he grabbed my arm and placed his hand on my back, pushing me toward the open trunk and repeating, "Don't worry, I'm getting you in for free." That was the moment my brain screamed danger. I started yelling for my parents as loud as I could, absolutely freaking out. The second I screamed, he let go of me, slammed the trunk shut, and jumped back into the car like nothing had happened. He took off just as my parents were running back toward me, panicking. I was sobbing uncontrollably, totally shaken, and scared out of my mind. We never saw him again. My parents reported it, but nothing came of it because he technically didn't hurt me. But to this day, I can't get into a cab, Uber, or anything like it without thinking of that moment.
Thank God he let go of you and the parents ran back to comfort you. Talk about a trip gone bad. But you mean to tell me they reported him, but they couldn't do anything because he did not technically even kidnap her or assault her? I mean, trying to push her in the back of the cab is literally assault, ain't it? Jeez Louise, I don't know why they can't just take down the report and go track that guy down and question him. They probably won't go to try to get her in there for free. He's going to take her somewhere and hold her for ransom, or if he was looking at her weird, he probably might end up doing something which I'm not going to say on here. Something nasty. But thankfully she got out of there all right, safe and sound, but she should feel safe in other taxis or Ubers if a grown-up is with her. Because not every one of them is bad. They're just people out there trying to make a few bucks, you know.
So this happened just last week. And let me tell you, I'm still rattled. I live in a small country that's not exactly wealthy, and I'd rather not say which one. But let's just say it's way ahead of the US time-wise, like 16 hours ahead of New York. Most people here do have cars, but taxis are the main way people get around. And when I say taxis, I don't mean anything official. Pretty much anyone with a car and a vague government permit can call themselves a driver. No glowing signs, no plastic dividers, no ID badges or license numbers on display. It's just you hopping into a random car with someone who says they'll take you wherever you need to go for the equivalent of 75 cents. Wild, right? Anyway, it was my birthday last week, and I went out with some friends over the weekend to celebrate at this little spot in town. We had a good time, some drinks, laughs, all of that. When it was time to head home, I got a separate taxi since I live about 10 or 15 minutes away from everyone else. The ride back was uneventful, and when we pulled up to my apartment, I paid the driver and literally ran inside because, well, let's just say my bladder was at DEFCON 1. I dashed straight downstairs to my bathroom and didn't think twice about locking the door behind me. While I was down there, I figured I might as well take a quick shower and get ready for bed, then came back upstairs to make myself a little snack and watch something light before crashing for the night. A couple hours passed, and I finally decided to head downstairs and sleep. I turned off the lights and hopped into bed when I suddenly heard this rustling noise in the corner of the room. At first, I thought it was just a rat or some kind of critter in the closet, which honestly wouldn't have been that surprising here. I tried to ignore it, but the sound kept going, and I knew there was no way I was getting any sleep unless I checked it out. So I sat up, flicked the light back on, and my heart almost jumped out of my chest. My closet door was cracked open just enough, and I could see a pair of eyes, human eyes, staring straight at me. I froze, and then I screamed. The door suddenly flew open, and this guy came bursting out. Turns out, it was the same taxi driver who had just dropped me off earlier. I was stunned, but I managed to grab the back of his shirt as he tried to bolt, and it ripped right in my hand. He got away before I could do anything else. I was still a bit buzzed, but my adrenaline was pumping like crazy. That's when it hit me. I had never locked my door when I came in. I mean, in this country, it's pretty normal to leave your door unlocked until bedtime. People here are generally super kind and trustworthy, and I'd never had an issue before. But apparently, while I was downstairs getting cleaned up, this creep let himself in and literally hid in my bedroom closet the whole time. I still get chills thinking about it. I reported it to the police the next morning, but to be honest, the system here is overwhelmed and kind of all over the place. There was some horrible murder in the area recently, so they're stretched thin and not really trained to deal with something like this. I didn't have the guy's license plate or anything helpful, just the color of the car and what it looked like. But since anyone here can use their personal car as a taxi, there's no telling how many lookalikes are out there. I've been crashing at a friend's place ever since, just to feel a bit safer. I'm trying to remind myself that this was probably a one-time thing, and I've lived here for over a year without any major problems. But you can bet I'll be triple checking every lock from now on. Lesson learned the hard way.
Well, thank God she was able to get that guy out of the apartment. But like she said, check all your doors and windows to make sure they're locked. Because if you have a crazy taxi driver that just dropped you off, you never know if he'll attempt to even try to break in and hide somewhere until you're in a vulnerable position. You never know, that guy probably wanted to do nasty stuff to her or kill her. You just don't know. But if he hasn't come back in a year, then she's okay. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those post notifications for more Midnight Tales content like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man's Quarter channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Tay, and I said that's a wrap, and have a nice day, y'all.